Have you ever wanted to make hand-stitched eyelets, but didn't know where to begin? In my latest pair of Regency stays, I wanted them to be just like my historical inspiration, and this meant making dozens of hand-stitched eyelets. In this video, I will show you that making hand-stitched eyelets doesn't need to be nearly as difficult as you may imagine. I will show you the secret to getting eyelets that are strong, durable, and yet don't take many hours to complete. Make sure you subscribe and hit the alarm bell to be notified when my next video will be released about how I made these Regency stays. So let's jump into it. So why might you want to make hand-sewn eyelets when the metal ones are so much faster? If you are into historical accuracy, hand-sewn eyelets are the only way to go for any corsets or stays that are before about 1828, when metal eyelets were invented. So this would be for anything like 18th century stays, jumps, Regency stays, or even a pair of maternity stays, like these ones I made. Although hand-sewn eyelets take a lot of time, they are well worth the effort. So we're going to begin by marking the placement of our eyelets. Since these stays are spiral laced, this means the eyelets have to be slightly offset from each other. I'm marking my eyelets, allowing them to be offset by about 1 centimeter from the ones on the left, although the top and bottom eyelets are in the same position as their left side counterparts. I'm just lining up the stays to make sure that they're all in the right position relative to each other. So we're going to need an awl for this. You really only need a stiletto awl, which is this one that gets wider towards the base. But my tip is broken off, so I'm also going to be using this scratch awl to make the initial hole in my fabric. So let's jump into making our eyelets. So we're going to start off by poking one hole. I only recommend poking one hole at a time and then sewing that eyelet before poking your next hole. So I'm working with my stiletto awl now to widen up that hole and just spread the threads in the weave of the fabric apart from each other. This will allow for a very strong eyelet, as opposed to punching at a hole, which actually cuts the threads and weakens the area. So now that our hole is punched, it's time to start stitching our eyelet. I'm using pearl cotton embroidery thread, which is double threaded. You can use any type of thread that is thicker, or even 3 strands of regular embroidery floss. And I'm periodically using my awl to just re-stretch open the hole because it wants to close up on us. So now I'm going to be adding in my guideline stitches, which are 4 stitches that will form a cross shape around the eyelet. And these stitches are being pulled pretty tight to help hold the hole open, because again, that hole really wants to close up on itself. So there we go, there are our 4 guideline stitches, and again I'm using my awl to re-stretch open the hole. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just fill in those 4 gaps between our 4 stitches. And how wide you space your stitches is really a matter of personal taste. The stitches don't have to be as densely packed as you might imagine, because there are extant stays and corsets that show eyelets, well, where the stitches are indeed close together, but also ones where the stitches are far apart. And as long as your stitches are being pulled tightly enough, this will be sufficient. And it also allows you to form eyelets quicker. So when it comes to what type of stitch you should use, I definitely recommend a whip stitch as opposed to a buttonhole stitch. When I first started making eyelets, I thought a buttonhole stitch was the only way to make it strong enough. However, this is not true. A whip stitch is just as effective, and it's what was used in extant corsets and stays, and it cuts the time you need to spend on these eyelets in half. So there we go, I'm just filling in that last quadrant now. again, I'm pulling my stitches tight because these stitches are serving not only to finish the edge of the eyelet, but to hold it open. And again, just doing a final stretch open with my awl. Now, another time-saving trick that I've learned from studying extant corsets and stays is that instead of knotting off my thread and starting on a fresh thread at each new eyelet, I actually travel from one eyelet to the next using a running stitch that's hidden on the underside of the work. This is another great time-saving tip. And here are all my finished eyelets. Hand stitch eyelets really add a beautiful, soft, historical feel to any corset, stays, or historical garment, and I really recommend giving them a try. They don't have to be nearly as difficult or take as long as most people imagine. I hope the techniques in this video have helped encourage you to try your own hand stitch eyelets in all of your historical sewing projects. Make sure you subscribe and hit the alarm bell to be notified when my next video will be released about how I made these Regency stays. Leave your comments and questions below. Check out the accompanying blog post, which will be linked in the description, and give a full-blown written tutorial. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week.